What's up, YouTube? This is your boy John from the Jersey Shore, and I am back with you today to give you my review of the 1982 film Creepshow. If you're already a subscriber to my channel, welcome back. It's good to see you guys again. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, go ahead and click that subscribe button right now and get that out of the way. Creepshow is a series of 5 short stories, all written by Stephen King and directed by George Romero.
Jolting tales of horror. Creepshow. From the author of Carrie, The Shining, and Cujo. And the creator of Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead.
Our first short story is called Father's Day. Got a little old man sitting in a chair, banging his cane on the arms of that chair, yelling about his Father's Day cake. Where's my cake?
Where's my cake?
His daughter Bedelia is out in the kitchen making said cake, but the whole time she's putting this cake together, he's in the other room screaming, telling everybody all they want is his money. You guys are all vultures.
You're nothing but a bunch of vultures.
Calling her a bitch.
Bitch.
Eventually, she's had enough. So you see her stop making this cake. She walks into the room where he is and picks up a marble ashtray and cracks him across the head with it. So now every year since this happened, Bedelia comes back. She gets a bottle of booze and goes out to the grave and pays a visit to her father. This time, things just don't turn out very well for her. Or anybody else.
Father's Day. And I got my cake. Happy Father's Day.
The second short story in Creepshow is called The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill. And this story is all Stephen King. It's all about Stephen King. He portrays Jordy Verrill in this movie, and you only, I believe, see 3 different characters in this movie, and the other 2 are very brief. You see one guy who plays a doctor, so it's like sort of a quack doctor. He rolls around in his office in a chair. And then you see Stephen King's father very briefly towards the end of this short story. But this whole short story is carried by Stephen King himself. In this story, Jordy Verrill lives alone. He's just an old redneck hick, lives out in like an old beat-up house, and he sees a meteor land in his backyard.
Holy old Jesus!
He goes out to this meteor, sees it in the ground. He can't believe what he sees. He reaches down and touches it, and it burns his fingers. So he runs back in the house, gets some water, or excuse me, no, I think he just runs over to a pump. He runs over to a pump and gets some water, goes back to try and cool the sumbitch off.
Got to cool some bitch off.
And dumps the water on top of the meteor, which causes that meteor to crack in half. Before this meteor cracked in half, he was having visions in his head, and he was imagining that he could take this meteor down to the college, and he was going to ask for a couple $100 for this thing. But now that he's broken it in half, now his imagination is telling them that if he brings this down to the college, that they're not going to give him anything for it at all. That he ruined this thing, and just old typical Jordy Verrill Jordy Verrill luck, it's all bad.
$200 for a broken meteor? Mr. Verrill, you must be joking. I wouldn't give you 2 cents.
Jordy Verrill, lunkhead. Verrill luck's always in. You spell that kind of luck B-A-D.
He just doesn't realize yet how bad. Ever since he touched this meteor with his fingers, you see a close-up of his fingers, actually, where you see a bunch of blisters forming. But throughout this short story, you see him progressively turning into a plant.
Grow on you.
The third short story is called Something to Tide You Over. And this story is carried by, there's only 3 characters that appear in this one. One is a woman who you see very briefly. I don't even know who she was. The second one is Ted Danson from Cheers notoriety, or from Cheers fame. And the third one is the legendary Leslie Nielsen. Leslie Nielsen ain't too funny in this story. So in this story, apparently Leslie Nielsen's ex-wife is now romantically involved with Ted Danson's character. Leslie Nielsen finds out about this, and he captures her and buries her in the sand on the beach so that the tide can come in and drown her. And as if that wasn't bad enough, he now lures Ted Danson's character out to the beach, forces him to jump into a hole because he's holding him at gunpoint, makes him bury himself in the sand, and then he brings out a television and a VCR and sets it up so that not only is Ted Danson going to drown out here in the ocean, he's going to be able to watch his girlfriend drown on this television set.
It's showtime!
Becky?
This story's pretty cool.
Shoot us dead, Richard.
The 4th story in Creepshow is called The Crate, and this one stars Hal Holbrook and Adrienne Barbeau. This one is probably my favorite of the 5. In this story primarily takes place in a college. The janitor comes across an old crate under a staircase that has a date of like 1840 or 1850 on the side of it. I don't remember exactly what the date is, splitting hairs. They pull this crate out, and the janitor himself and another one of the professors decide that it would be a good idea to open this crate. As they're opening this crate, they hear almost like squeaking or cricket type noises coming from inside the crate. They get that thing just about open. They look inside, and the janitor says there's something in there. He reaches his arm in there, and whatever it is that's in there starts to bite him. It won't let go of him.
There's something in there, Doc. Something shiny. Looks like a couple of emeralds.
No matter how hard the professor tries to get this guy away from this crate, he can't. So eventually he falls on the floor, the crate flips over, the lid comes up, and you see that there's some sort of a monster inside of this crate. The monster completely devours him. The professor runs out of the room to look for help. He gets another professor to go into that room to check this crate out, and things don't work out too well for him. Eventually, this professor makes his way over to Hal Holbrook's house. Hal is his buddy. This professor was supposed to go over that night to play chess with him. And when he gets there, he's completely hysterical. He's trying to explain to him what's going on. Hal Holbrook is looking at him like he's absolutely crazy. But he does eventually convince him to go back to the college and take a look. A very important part of this story is that Adrienne Barbeau's character is absolutely terrible towards her husband. She's just got a bad attitude. She treats him like he's a child. Not only a child, a bad child. She says, what would you do without me? She treats him like garbage. And it's very obvious throughout this short story that he's about had enough. He keeps getting visions in his head of ways that he would like to see her die. It's actually pretty cool the way that this thing turns out. So there's a monster in a crate down at the college. This guy, he is asked by his friend to go down there and check it out, and he can't stand his wife, and he's having visions of killing his wife.
Stop it! Stop it, Henry! I'll scream!
Oh, scream all you want. I'll help you. Wake up! Wake up! Whatever you are, wake up! Wake up! Dinner time! Poison me! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up!
So how do you think this is going to turn out?
Now get out of my way, Henry, or I swear to God you'll be wearing your balls for earrings. And I swear to God, if you ever touch me...
The 5th and final story in Creepshow is called They're Creeping Up on You, and it stars E.G. Marshall. He is a completely miserable old tyrant. He lives in this big apartment that is completely white. It's like impeccably clean. So this dude's got some sort of OCD about germs. He's a germaphobe. He's a neat freak. And the entire time that this thing is going on, he's spotting roaches throughout his apartment. Like I said, everything is white, with the exception of a few highlighted things here and there, like a jukebox. I believe there's like a bar of soap and a soap dish that are not white. But the entire room, the entire apartment, the floors, the walls, the ceilings, the lights, it's predominantly white. So if a little bug comes out, it's like shining a spotlight on something. You can't miss it. You see these big cockroaches coming out from everywhere in here, and he's on the phone just completely berating the people and belittling the people that he works for, belittling the people who run this building. He's saying, I own this building. I don't want to see another roach in my building. There's one guy who's supposed to be an assistant or an employee of his who's at Disney World with his family. He gets him on the phone eventually. It's like 10:30 at night, and he tells him that if I don't have a response or if I don't have somebody here to clean up these roaches by midnight, you can stay in Disney World because you're not going to have a job anymore.
Exactly 26 minutes to go, or he can stay on vacation permanently.
This guy is a first-class piece of garbage, and he gets what's coming to him.
I hope you die.
And it's really gross. I think that Creepshow is an absolutely legendary film. It's like a perfect storm in the world of horror, in the horror genre. It was written by Stephen King. It was all directed by George A. Romero, and all the effects in this movie were done by Tom Savini. You got arguably the greatest writer in the history of the horror genre, teamed up with one of the most legendary directors and writers in the history of the horror genre, and arguably the greatest special effects artist in the history of the horror genre, all coming together in 1982 and making this legendary movie. It's very hard for me to pick one of these and call it my favorite. The Crate, I gravitated towards The Crate, A, because I knew who Adrienne Barbeau was, so I already knew her, so I liked her, and the gore in this one. I really enjoyed the blood in this one. The monster that's inside of the crate is pretty cool. The story in general is pretty cool, but the gore, I have no doubt whatsoever that the gore is what drew me towards this one. But something to tide you over was also, it's a very close second, if not first. It's between those two, which one is my favorite. I really enjoyed the story in this one as well. And this one is the one that I thought was actually genuinely scary. Having a crazy dude bury you up to your neck in sand so that the tide can come in and slowly kill you, and you can more or less watch you know what's going to happen and there ain't nothing you can do about it. That is horrifying stuff right there. That's nightmare fuel, and I love that story. And you also see the after effects of that with Ted Danson's character and his girlfriend's character. Once they have been drowned, you see them.
We dug a hole for you, Richard. On the beach.
And the effects there are pretty cool. So that one also holds a pretty special place in my heart. And then you throw Leslie Nielsen in there on top of it, where he's not funny, he's actually serious, and he's crazy. I just thought that this one had everything. The monster in Father's Day, the zombie that comes out of the ground, the father, I explained earlier that he got hit in the head with an ashtray. Well, obviously that kills him. And in this one, you see him coming out of the ground as a skeleton or as a zombie. I don't know which one you want to call it, but whatever you want to call it, he looks absolutely amazing. He looks like something that's been in the ground rotting for years and years. And I thought it was awesome that the first thing that he says when he comes out of the ground is, it's awesome. The Jordy Verrill story I thought was really cool too. I mean, it was very basic, it was very simple, and it almost feels like they're trying to put you into the mind and the imagination of an imbecile. It's pretty well made actually, and I thought Stephen King pulled this out pretty cool. I mean, he's got some pretty goofy facial features in this, or I should say not facial features, facial expressions in this. And I thought he did a really great job. Now, Stephen King is an author, he's not an actor, and I thought he did a really stand-up job in this short story. The last story, The Dude with All the Cockroaches, that's easily my least favorite of the 5, and I actually like that one too. But if I have to pick, you know, if I'm ranking these things, obviously something's got to come in last. So although I like that story, it's my least favorite of the 5. And from what I've seen here and there, and I've read little blips about Creepshow throughout the years, that's actually the most expensive short story in this movie because of the cost of the roaches.
Bastards!
I would have to say that probably because of when I saw this movie, it left a very deep imprint in my mind. And I was at a very young, impressionable age, and I was just coming into my own in the world of watching horror movies. And this is a hell of a movie to see when you're that young, with Stephen King, George Romero, and Tom Savini. It does not get much better than that. If you have not seen Creepshow, you are doing yourself a gigantic disservice. This movie is legendary. Watch Creepshow. All right, folks, that is going to do it for my review of the 1982 classic movie, Creepshow. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you really like this video and you made it this far into this video, why not click that subscribe button and join me on this journey? Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Have a kick-ass day. And thank you for watching. Where's my cake?